Before I start my review for Legends Tomorrow, I just wanted to preface something that I feel is very important and something that I really do want to address. As you guys know, I now have an editing system and I am editing my videos such as this one. But don't expect every video to be edited. I'm sure you guys are expecting that and I'm not going to do that. One, because it takes a lot of time. Two, because if I don't like something, I'm not going to spend a lot of time caring about. That's just how I am. If something really affects me, then I'm going to spend a lot of time constructing my thoughts and, taking time with it. But something like a rant, I'm just gonna do completely unedited because I don't want to edit a rant. That's just not what I do. So if you guys are expecting a edited video for every video I do, that's not gonna happen. Unless it's a good episode, if I don't like it, I'm simply not going to edit. So don't expect there to be an edited video for everything. There will be occasionally, not occasionally, I will say there probably will be for a lot of different things, but for many things they're not going to be edited. They are going to they take a lot of time, and I know you guys really like my videos. I always try to be as consistent as possible, and this kind of holds back from doing that. Granted, it is quality videos, but it isn't easy to do. Just wanted to get that off my chest, and now let's get to the review. Hey guys, Kendra and Ray for Legends Tomorrow, Season 1, Episode 13, Leviathan. And before I get to this episode, let me just confirm something real quick, because I'm pretty sure you guys are under the impression that I really did not like last week's episode, and truthfully, no, I was not a fan of last week's episode. I think last week's episode was way too convoluted and just way too messy for my liking, personally. It wasn't, I think, any means a bad episode. It was just a lot of missed opportunities. Things were rushed, they should have continued things, and for me, a lot of it could have been stretched out to 2 episodes. And because of that episode being so messy, though, regardless of that, I knew this episode was going to be better because we were done with that plot. We used the Pilgrim. We were done with all that stuff. We were now moving on to something different. And the other reason I knew this episode was going to be really good was because it was originally actually supposed to be the season finale. If you guys know, Legends Tomorrow originally was supposed to have 13 episodes, and for whatever reason, I don't know when exactly, but they expanded to 16, and this was supposed to be their finale, and I gotta say that you definitely did get that feel, because not only was this, I think, the most epic episode we have had so far, in my opinion, it is the strongest episode of Legends Tomorrow. It's not personally my favorite episode. I still think my favorite episode is the 50s one. I think it's neck and neck with this one and the 50s one, because I still think they're both very strong episodes, but this one was right up there with that one. I really loved this episode. I thought it was a very strong one, and there are a lot of things I definitely really did love about it, so let's just jump right into it, because I really did love it. I love how right away this episode just gets right to it. Like, there is no dragging on. There's no stupid Ray and Kendra subplot, which I was very happy with. There actually is no Kendra subplot in this episode. We see Wave Rider arrives above London in 2146, and right away, the line at the end of last week's episode, it already made things a lot more simpler here, and that's really when Legends Tomorrow is at its best. When it tries to be very convoluted and tries to make things more confusing, all it does is confuse me. It doesn't make it more... it doesn't, add more tension or anything like that by just creating this, more complex stuff than we already need. I like they kept it simple here, because that really is when Legends Tomorrow's at its best, and basically we realized when Rip said they're out of time, what he meant is the only place they can go is 2146, and what I love is that, you guys know, most of future episodes, I'm like, oh no, this is never a good thing. I always get worried when we get to a future episode, because so far they've been very boring. They haven't been interesting. The difference is here, they weren't on the Wave Rider the whole time. They actually were out in the real world, and you really saw how dangerous of a world this really is. So they're caught in an aerial bombardment, and Rip confirms that Savage's forces are the ones who are opening fire, and repeats their mission to find Savage where they know they can find him. He confirms that Savage will kill his wife and son in 3 days' time, but they will save them by stopping Savage now, because basically they need to now stop Savage from killing his wife and son. That is now their main mission. They are now done with going back in time. To me, it seems like this is where the rest of the 4 episodes are going to be, is in 2146. Will we get to somewhere else? Possibly, but I feel like most of the last episodes of this season are going to be in 2146, because think about it, that's how the show started, was us seeing Rip's family being killed. So Gideon slips Wave Rider beneath the artillery fire, and Rip has the AI set them down near the encampment of the remaining resistance forces. He insists they have to move out immediately because Savage will be out in the open that night, and basically they have to be as careful as possible with Savage. Obviously, they're very worried, and I have to say, without a doubt, I think one of the best things this episode did was make Savage much more, not compelling, but menacing. Like, you really saw that presence that Savage had in this episode. I really think they showed that to their fullest potential here. And, that's something that I think they did very, very well in this episode. And just jumping right into that, when it comes to DC shows, you need a very compelling villain. Of course, Arrow this season has Damien Dark, one of the most powerful, taunting, just, I think, menacing figures they've ever had on the show, but also so likable. And that's something that I think is so great about Damien Dark. I think they've done a great job with that. The Flash, of course, had Zoom this season, which isn't as compelling as, of course, as Eobard Thawne was, but I think still just as compelling. Legends of Tomorrow, however, really hasn't been able to do that as well with Vandal Savage. And I think the main reason is that Vandal Savage was so abruptly introduced, we haven't really gotten to see him as fleshed out as we could. Mainly because of the fact that we've gone in time so many times when he's not as powerful, and he's not this god to many people. And finally in this episode, we get to see him. We see him as this god, sort of like a Hitler-like presence. He has all these followers. He's basically dominating the entire galaxy, and everyone just looks up to Savage, even though they know that what he's doing is wrong. Everyone looks up to him as their god, and this is exactly what we need Savage to be. Carl Casperson, I think his name is. Everyone has been saying he hasn't been as good as, he could be, but I really think he gave that menacing presence in this episode that we need from Savage, and from here on out, this is exactly what I want to see. I don't want to see that side of Savage that's kind of evil, but kind of not. This is the side we need to see, not the cheesy side. I don't think he's phoning it in. I think he really seemed genuine, and it honestly felt like a movie villain. And I think the other thing with DC villains is that, as we know, shows like Daredevil and Jessica Jones, they've been able to develop their villains more because they've had 13 episodes, while The Flash and Arrow rely so heavily on the serial part of their show that there are so many other storylines to go through that sometimes their villains are wasted. And you can tell the Legends of Tomorrow, I think they've had the most trouble with it because of the fact that their episodes have felt more like one-offs than it has for like a genuine story. And a lot of times, I think we have gotten away from this whole Vandal Savage conflict, and I'm glad that this episode, we focus mainly on that conflict because, hey, let's face it, that's been the main conflict this season. That's the reason we watched this show, and I think they really showed that to its fullest potential in this episode. Is it the fullest potential we'll see? No, I do think episodes 14, 15, and 16 will also be just as focused, but we'll have to see as those episodes come. But I think that's something that this episode did really, really well. And not only did we get to see Savage, I think, to his fullest potential in this episode, but we also got to introduce to another person in his life, and that, of course, is Cassandra. She, of course, she's giving a speech to his forces, and Rip, Sarah, Mick, and Len are disguised in uniform. They're watching from the crowd, and they realize that they can't grab Savage at that time because of the fact that he's chanting and everything, and once he leaves the stage, he's giving this incredible speech that almost felt like a movie scene. I mean, just the way it was done, it felt like a movie scene. And Kendra tells the field team that Jackson, the jump ship, ready to extract them, and Cassandra goes by, and Len suspects that she noticed them, which obviously is a problem. They don't know who Cassandra is, but they know that she's associated with Savage, which right away obviously scares them. So Rip isn't convinced, and the field team follows Cassandra and her soldiers, and that's the thing I like about this episode, is that nobody was an idiot here. Like, no one was like, oh, let's just, in other episodes, they would have probably followed Savage, and they would have watched his whole thing go on, but from here, they were watching from a side, and they didn't really know what to do, if they could just catch him, but they realized they couldn't really do that. So Kendra is getting into a close scan of Cassandra and notice that she's wearing Kendra's bracelet from ancient Egypt. So clearly she's been around as long as Kendra has, and I really think they put Kendra to really good use in this episode. And that's something that, in my opinion, they've struggled the most with in this show, and something that I think was one of the best things about this episode was the way they put Kendra to use here, which we will get into. So once Savage, Cassandra, and their soldiers have moved off, Mick trips Rip. The soldiers turn, and Sarah and Rip to attack the soldiers, while Len and Mick go after Savage. And Sarah and Cassandra fight, and Kendra tells Sarah that she needs to take Cassandra's bracelet, because obviously she knows the connection to her. And more soldiers move in. Rip orders the team to fall back, and as Jackson moves in, Len contemplates shooting Cassandra, and then leaves with the others. And I loved this scene between Len and Cassandra, and I liked that we got this bonding between these two. I thought they did it really well. They really handled that bonding very well there. So back on Wavebrow, Len explains that they staged the distraction. Kendra tells the team about the bracelet, and Sarah wonders how they're going to kill Savage with it, because obviously there's a reason why Kendra wants this bracelet. She doesn't know why, but she knows that she wants this bracelet. And basically, Rip figures out that Len and Mick can steal it, and just as Gideon detects resistance fighters approaching, just as Gideon detects resistant fighters approaching, so before Rip leaves to talk to them, he tells Sarah to get Kendra ready to kill Savage with the bracelet, because that is what they plan to do, is that they plan to use the bracelet to kill Savage, and I like they had a genuine way to do that. So Ray, Martin, and Jax accompany Rip out, and the Resistance fighters ambush them. Rip says his wife and son live in Whitechapel, and warns that the same fate will befall them if they don't accept the team's help. And this is the thing I think they did very well in this episode. As I said, when the show initially started, we just didn't feel as much as a connection to his wife and son. Obviously, we knew that, oh my god, I mean, Savage killed children, and he, was okay with doing that sort of thing, and we know how much of a savage that he really is, but I think this really makes us get that emotional feel that we should hear. He points out that they'd be dead if they were for Rip, and the leader takes them to the encampment. She explains that Whitechapel fell 11 days ago, and Rip is sure his family isn't there, and the leader leaves them to get acclimated, and Jax gives his child a candy bar. More children run up, and Stein tells Jax that they should return to the ship and get additional provisions. So Ray asks Rip about his family. Rip says that he doesn't want to discuss it, and we know that he has remained very low-key. He's always kind of been very shady to them, and Ray points out that Rip isn't trying to get his family to safety. He knows there's more going on here. Rip explains that after they tried to kill Savage in ancient Egypt, he traveled to 2146 and tried to save Miranda and Jonas, but they were cut down by Savage's soldiers, and he jumped back and tried to save them again and again, and each time his family died, Time wants his family to die, and the timeline has to remain unchanged. And that's something that he just can't change. So he really doesn't feel that he's going to be able to save them because of his past attempts. And I really think it added to the development of Rip as a character. And that's something I think they did very well here. Not only did they develop Savage, but I think they developed Rip just as well. From the beginning, I think we have established that Rip has been our main character. Even though Legend of Tomorrow is an ensemble show and there are a lot of characters, Rip Hunter remains our main focus. Why? Because he's the one that brought us into this show. He's the one that brought us into this world. He's the one that recruited the team. And I think this episode really showed that he is supposed to be our main focus and that he really is supposed to be the one that we're rooting for. We want him to save his family, even though his past attempts have failed. And it really makes him come across as less of an asshole and more of just someone that we really care about and someone that's just trying to be very cautious about how to use time because he's known in the past what has happened before. And I think the show has had a really hard problem with making this guy likable, making him interesting. In this episode, it only made him more interesting, but it also made us care for him a lot more than I think we ever have before. And I really think they use Rip, just like Savage, to their fullest potential in this episode, without a doubt. And something else I think is just as well established as what's going on with Rip is his willingness to take down Savage. He kind of is losing that hope that he's not going to get to Savage, but now that he has that chance, he does kind of want to take it. And we definitely see in this next scene when the leader comes back and says that they actually have no record of Rip and the others disappeared 150 years ago. Rip says they have to get to Savage as soon as possible, and the leader says that someone tried to kill Savage earlier and he's gone to ground in the Citadel's bunker. So Delta Cam calls him requesting help. The leader takes a team there, and by the time they get there, the rebels are dead, and the leader explains that London is the last patch of free ground on Earth, and wonders where the team can do against soldiers with such power. And you really do see Rip as the leader here, and I think for a while we've really had a hard time doing that, because so many missions Rip has sitted out, and this is the first one in a while that he actually is involved, and he actually does get to do something, and in many ways, this is his mission. He finally gets to do something that he's wanted to do, and the real question is, what does he do with this power? I think Rip honestly doesn't know how to handle this kind of power because he hasn't had this kind of power before, and I think this episode really did show that with this power, Rip doesn't really know, as much as he likes it, he doesn't really know how to handle it, and that's something that I think is going to be a very interesting struggle to see throughout the rest of the season. So now they're all confused. They don't really know what to do. They don't know how to handle this whole situation with Cassandra. Like I said, we've never really seen them like this before, and that's something I really like seeing, is that Cassandra isn't just a plot device. She is someone to challenge them. Do they get her on her side? Do they try to ally with her? I mean, they really don't know what to do here. So Rip tells the team what he's heard, and Kendra says that she knows what to do with the bracelet and will need Mick to burn something. So Mick suggests that they send Savage one of Cassandra's fingers and keep sending them until he offers his life, which is exactly something that Mick would suggest. And Sarah suggests that Cassandra knows the details of Savage's defenses, and Len says that he's on it, because she clearly knows more what's going on there, and they can use her to their advantage. And I like that they didn't decide to kill her, they actually wanted to use her. So Len asks Cassandra how he's going to get the information that he wants. She says that Savage has prepared her for torture, and Len notes that her father sounds a lot like his. And the way that they compare these two, I thought was very interesting. Cassandra explains that Per Degaton was a madman who unleashed the Armageddon virus 14 years ago. Her mother was among the millions that died, and Savage stood up to Degaton, and finally the Degaton doesn't sound completely insane. It actually sounds like it does make sense here. As you guys know, I didn't hate that episode. I just felt it was, again, a lot of missed potential, but I like that they actually reintroduced this here, because the Degaton thing didn't work, and I like they reintroduced it. So Cassandra insists that Savage is the only one capable of putting the world back together, and in her mind, it is a good thing what he's doing. She says that her suffering is a small price to pay, and Len points out that he said nothing about torture, and basically, he feels that they really can use her, and that she could be a good ally for them. The fact that she can get them information, the fact that they know what's going on with her, they really can use her as best as they can, which I definitely thought they used very well here. So back on Wave Rider, Ray suggests that he and Stein examine soil samples and wreckage from the camp to determine what kind of weaponry that Savage is using, because they know he's using some kind, but they just don't know what it is. So on the bridge, Mick and Len say that they're working on a plan to get the bracelet. Rip explains about the weapon that Savage used to wipe out the camp, and Kendra agrees to go through Borman's notebooks, and in the cargo hold, she and Sarah check the books again. Among the items, there is Hawkman's mace, and Kendra says she tries not to think about him because he's her past and Ray is her future. And this is where I think they handled her arc very well here. She touches the mace, she recalls a memory from the past, and this didn't just feel like a random flashback between Kendra and, Carter. It felt like a genuine flashback that we need to see, because we see Iowa City in 1941. Carter's training with his mace when Kendra comes in dressed up. She reminds him that he missed their anniversaries, and Carter gives him his mace as an anniversary gift. He says it's time for her to learn how to use it, and wants to know that if he goes first, then she can protect herself, and Kendra says she doesn't want to consider facing life without him. Carter assures her that he'll always be near. She takes the mace, wonders if she'll be strong enough to kill Savage, and Carter assures her that she has everything that she needs, and Kendra told Sarah that she knows what they can use to kill Savage, and you really do see Kendra's willingness to kill Savage in this episode. I think it's something they developed really well. They've had a really hard time developing her character, and I think this episode especially, they really started to understand the potential that her character really does have. I mean, when we were introduced to her, she, of course, as we know, was this princess, and that's what she was known as, was this Chiara, I think her name was, and we remember her, from the Egyptian days. We were introduced to her in The Flash. She seemed so interesting. They just haven't used her to her fullest potential, and I think they really are starting to understand how great of a character she can be and the potential that she really does have. So in the bunker, Cassandra's sparring with her guards. She spares them and warns that the rebels won't show them any such mercy. Mick and Len come in, weapons drawn, order to hand over the bracelet. Alarms go off, and Cassandra addresses Len by name, asking what he's going to do. Len and Mick take Cassandra to Wave Rider and lock her up, and says that she knows who all of them are. She addresses Rip by his Egyptian name and explains that she is not just associated with Savage, she actually is Savage's daughter. And they're all freaking out. I mean, this changes everything. This isn't suddenly just someone that they can take down. This is someone that is associated with Savage and definitely will hurt them. So they really don't know how to handle this, and I really did love the way that they're so confused with this revelation. We've seen them stirred up by things before, but nothing to this extent. I think that's something they used really well here. And like I said, Cassandra's one of the first characters introduced on the show in a long time that doesn't just feel like a plot device. She isn't just a random character that we're meeting for one episode and we're probably never going to see again. It's just there to move the plot forward. Cassandra is much different than that, because of course she is Savage's daughter, and it just adds a bit of a weight to her character. And the way that they developed her character, I really thought was the best they could, because this is not the last we're going to see of her. We know we're probably going to see her again, because like I said, I do think we're going to be on 2146 for a while, for the rest of the season, I think, honestly, is how we're going to be here. But we really did see that in her mind, her father is a good guy. She knows that he is this torturous, maniacal man, but to her, he is doing the right thing because of her experiences where per Degaton, which of course Rip can't really say anything about, because he hasn't experienced that kind of torture. He just knows that Savage murdered his family, and how much of, how evil and powerful Savage really is, and how much they need to stop him. And I really think they made Cassandra a very well thought out character, and especially her bonding with Len, it created this really interesting dynamic that I really hope the show does again. I've said it before, one of the best things about the show is the pairings that the show has. Cassandra's a character we haven't really seen before, and her and Len already really have fantastic chemistry, and I really think she just fit into the show perfectly. And I honestly would be interested in maybe upgrading her to main character because she really was awesome in this episode and really add a lot of emotional weight and story to Savage's plots than we ever had before. So Ray then finds Rip, who warns that they can't repay the engines in 30 minutes, and he insists that everyone on board is as dead as his family, and that they're all gonna die, and there's really nothing they can do to save them. Ray says that he believes in choices, not fate, and he tells Rip that they can choose to fight even if it's futile, but Rip points out that they have to kill Savage, and their chances are completely impossible to do that. They just can't do that. So Kendra and Len arrive. Kendra says that she's found a way to kill Savage, and Len says that Cassandra can get them in, and Ray says that he can't stop Leviathan. He just can't stop it. And Rip says that he figures it was fate that compelled him to bring the team together and change the future once and for all, basically. So as Kendra prepares to go after Savage, she meets with Ray. He assures her that she can do it and refuses to let her say any goodbyes. They kiss. Leviathan's footsteps echo throughout the ship, and this is something I loved here, is their positivity here. We really haven't seen this kind of positivity throughout the show, and I like that we really did see that in this episode. It really added to a lot of what I loved in this episode. So outside, Jax wires up Ray's Atom suit to Waverider's auxiliary time drive and reverse the polarity of the dwarf star matrix. And once Jax is done, he tells Ray that he's the real hero. Ray has him stand back, then activates the Atom suit. And as Jax looks on, the Atom grows to giant size, charges towards Leviathan. Now, how they were able to do this, I think, is crazy. And we get what is, without a doubt, I think the coolest scene we've ever had in this show, which I will get to. Now, I know what you guys are going to be saying. This is your favorite scene that I've ever seen the show is done. Yes, for many reasons it is, and I'll tell you guys why. I understand that, yes, there are fight scenes in Legends Tomorrow, and yes, there has pretty much been one every episode, and most of them, yes, they have been very underwhelming and very anticlimactic. Why? Because of the way they've used them. They've either used them as a pointless fight scene because the episode simply needed it, and that's the direction they wanted to go, and they didn't want to bore the fans, so they just put it in, or they haven't let them use their powers, and basically they've driven them down by the villain. Like, for example, that terrible fight with the Pilgrim last week. That was lame, it was pathetic, it was honestly kind of laughable. What I love about this fight scene between Ray and the Leviathan is not only are we seeing a truly badass fight that felt like a movie, it really was awesome here, we also get to see Ray's evolution as a character. What has been Ray's purpose all season? I talked about this. Ray's main purpose since the beginning of the show was to do something that is impactful, something that makes him a hero, because he wants to be remembered as a hero. So it would make sense to Ray go out and fight the Leviathan. This is something that he's wanted to do, and he feels it is his duty to do that. And the scene we get here is just awesome. We see the two fight. Ray manages to topple the Titanic robots, and at the same time, Savage's aide is informing the Leviathan's encountering resistance. Savage realizes that it's the Atom and another aide, and tells Savage that Cassandra's returned. The immoral tyrant goes to greet his daughter and wonders how she escaped. He realizes that her bracelet is gone, that Cassandra is lying when she claims she lost in the escape. So yes, Cassandra is lying to Savage here, which I thought was very interesting, that she was straight up lying to him, and that they did actually take her in a more heroic direction than I thought they were going to. And Cassandra tells Savage to try and tell her that he wasn't responsible for the release of the virus, because she does want to get this information. And I love that she wasn't brainwashed, she wasn't forced to do this. Basically, you know, Len told her deep down, you don't really trust him, that you don't really want to ally with him. So while this is all going on, Leviathan and Atom are continuing fighting. The team steps out of the shadows, guns aimed at Savage. Cassandra tells her father that he's the monster just as soldiers arrive, and Jax tells the Atom to open fire with his heartlight beams, and the hero opens fire, and Savage realizes that Hawkgirl is there just as she flies down, snatches him away, and I love that we finally got to see Kendra actually kick some ass and actually get her revenge on Savage. Now, we knew obviously she's not going to kill Savage in this scene, but she looked really close to doing that, because while her teammates take on Savage's soldiers, she hits Savage, realizes that her mace can't hurt him, and basically she can't actually hurt him with the mace. So Atom slams an electrical tower into Leviathan, then hits it full force with his blasters. Hawkgirl smashes Savage down, keeps beating him, and the fact that she's actually using this power against him really solidifies, I think, the purpose of her character. As we've known, her main goal has been to take down Savage. Ever since Carter was killed, she's wanted to do this, and finally in this moment, she's thinking, shit, I finally get the chance to do this, and it's just awesome to watch. So Leviathan fires up, he fires a blast at Atom, knocking him down. Jay tells his friend to get up, and this scene with basically Jax, encouraging him, not Jay. Jax is encouraging him to get up. It's an incredibly impactful scene to watch because you can tell this Leviathan is beating on Adam. He is basically just sweating in every inch of his body and taking everything he can to take down this thing, even though he knows it may be impossible and that he might not actually be able to physically beat the Leviathan. He's doing whatever he can to take it down. It's an incredible scene to watch, and I was glued to my seat watching this scene. Without a doubt, I think the most intense scene we have had in the show, and I think the best use of a fight scene we have had. And with the fight scene as well, the other thing I love is that Ray does end up victorious in the end. They kind of make you think for a second that Ray is not gonna, this is not gonna work out for him. But that's the thing this season I think has done wrong, is that every mission has, something has gone wrong. And this is the first time where it seems like things actually work, because Jax does give Adam that encouragement, which actually does get him to recover. He punches the charging Leviathan, smashes its head off, and he actually does win. And he did take down this Leviathan. That is the thing that Adam has wanted to do. He's wanted to remain a hero, and finally he gets to be a hero to everyone. And that sudden dynamic that Jax and Ray have had. Yes, they haven't had a ton of interaction. They've had stuff here and there, but this seems like a new dynamic that they had. And Jax really does see that confidence in Ray, and that Ray can be a hero, and that Ray can inspire people, much like the Arrow and the Flash do, which is something that he wants to do. You know, he wants to be, obviously he's not the Green Arrow and he's not the Flash, but he wants to be just as powerful as them. And I really feel this scene is really heading him towards that direction. I really feel by next season, Ray's gonna be a lot more confident. Not that he hasn't been, but I feel like it's been a lot of fake confidence. Kind of been him having this confidence to feel content with himself, and now he actually just feel like he has accomplished something and that he has done something impactful in his life, which I absolutely love seeing. So not only was it an incredible fight scene, I think it was an incredible character development for Ray and the way that they handled all that. So, right after that crazy scene, Rip arrives, tells Kendra to finish off Savage. She tells Rip that it's Carter, and we don't really know what's going to happen here. Rip, of course, is speechless. He didn't know if this is possible. He didn't know what was going to happen here, and reinforcements arrive. Mick yells at Kendra to finish it. Rip points out that if Kendra doesn't kill Savage, then his wife and son will die, and she needs to kill Savage. But now Kendra's conflicted, because if she kills Savage, what could happen to Carter? So after a moment, Kendra releases Savage, says that she can't do it, and she just can't go through with killing him. Even though she wants to, she can't do it. Rip says they need to get Savage and Carter back to Wave Rider and knock Savage unconscious, and it's an incredible scene. It really is, because now they have more to deal with, and I love that they have more to deal with. It isn't just so simple anymore. Even though the episodes start off simple, it isn't simple, but you can understand what is going on. It's not so complex that you can't understand what's going on, which I really do love. So the next morning, Len takes Cassandra to the rebel camp. When the leader wonders why she shouldn't kill Cassandra, Cassandra says that she knows the soldiers' tactics and weaknesses. She tells Lear to ask Len why she changed her mind, and basically, you know, she doesn't really know why she changed her mind, and I think it's very interesting as to why she changed her mind. I think just Len kind of got through to her. Len got through to her that this isn't really what she wants to do. It seems like Cassandra is going to ally with them, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with that. So on Wave Rider, Ray asks Kendra what happened. Kendra says that they need to talk, and it's cut short. I love that. I love that there wasn't a huge conversation here. I love that we didn't even focus really on Ray and Kendra, because the episode was more focused on Ray and Kendra themselves than Ray and Kendra as a couple, which as a dynamic, that's something you need. You need to care about these characters themselves to care about them as a couple. And I've cared about Ray, but Kendra I just haven't really cared as much for, mainly because of the direction they've taken her. But after this, now I am much more interested in Ray and Kendra's subplot, and this really makes me think that they're doomed. There is no way that Ray and Kendra, I think, is going to happen. And whether Kendra does end up with Carter or not, I really do think that she can't be with Ray as long as Carter's alive. As long as Carter's alive, she feels she needs to be with Carter, because as we know, that's not only the prophecy, it's who she truly does love. And Ray, we know she just doesn't have that love for right now, which is very interesting. So I really love the way that was done. And then we get to the end of the episode, we see Stein wakes up, he confirms, Rip confirms that he's okay, he tells Stein what happened and confirms that the refugees are safe. Stein wonders if time will assert itself and cause them to die, and Rip says that for once, time is actually on their side. They're actually okay, and I like that, again, they do have the positive outlook on this. And he then goes to see Savage in the brig, and we get this fantastic confrontation between him and Savage, which has been something that I don't really think the show has really pushed as much as it does in this episode. Not only was this scene just incredible, and especially having that scene back to back with Kendra taking on Savage and, Ray taking on Leviathan, what we get next is probably the most shocking reveal we have ever had in this show. Now, I knew this was eventually going to happen. I knew it had to happen. I knew it was coming, but I didn't know it was going to happen in this episode, and I didn't think we were going to get it till probably next season. But they actually had a very clever way of bringing back this character. Basically, we see Hawkgirl. She prepares to strike the death blow. A soldier arrives, opens fire on her. She prepares to kill him, knocking off his helmet, only to realize that it's Carter. Yes, Carter is still alive, and Kendra goes to him. Savage explains that Carter reincarnated and doesn't remember who he is, and how is this possible? I don't really know. But Savage discovers Carter. He brainwashed him to forgetting his past lives, and basically, it is crazy to think about, but it does make sense. As we know, Kendra and Carter can't physically die because they will eventually be reincarnated by Savage. And the fact that Savage did reincarnate him only to fight against Kendra is crazy to think about, but it does make sense. And the saddest part is that Kendra can't really do anything here. The one thing she's wanted to do is to get Carter back. We've seen her harp on Carter throughout this entire season. Has it been annoying? Yes, it has definitely gone annoying, but it made sense in this episode because now she's face to face with Carter, who doesn't even remember her. So Kendra grabs Carter and says that he's the only one, grabs Savage, says he's the only one who can unlock Carter's mind, and now we can have a reverse situation with Kendra and Carter, because when Kendra was first introduced, as we know, she didn't remember anything about her origin, she didn't remember who she was, and now Carter's going through the same thing. He's been trained as a soldier, and Savage has made him think that he is this guy and doesn't remember Kendra at all, which is a very interesting situation, and that's something I can't wait to see how it plays out and what ends up happening there. So I thought that was just incredible. And like I said, Legends of Tomorrow's never been a show that's been like necessarily shocking. We've had some shocking scenes here and there, but this is without a doubt the most shocking twist we've had, and a very interesting twist as well. I'm very interested in seeing where this is going to go and where we're headed with this. As you guys know in this review, I've talked a lot about Savage and Rip, but of course, as a whole, we haven't had a ton of scenes between these two. We've heard, of course, what Rip has gone through, and that is struggle with Savage, but we haven't really seen these two individually, and I feel like this is the first time that we really got to see the hatred that these two have for each other, and especially the line with Rip saying, "I'm going to see an old friend." It's a fantastic line, and the way the episode ends, I absolutely love, because basically, we see, he goes to see Savage in the brig. Savage points out that Rip has failed to kill himself and notes that he placed Kendra in an impossible position. She has to choose between her soulmate and Rip's, and that distracts her basically. In many ways, I think Savage did this to distract Kendra, because he knows if Kendra's harping on getting Carter back and wanting to fix him, then she's not going to focus on killing Savage. And Rip says that there's no such thing as destiny and that he just doesn't believe it's possible. And Savage warns that time will tell if there's still hope for Rip's family, and basically outright threatens him. And this not only shows the conflict that these two men are going through, but you really see the determination they both have. Rip wants to weaken Savage, while Savage wants to weaken him, and it's not just about weakening the other, person, it's that Rip wants to stop this from happening. He wants to stop this from happening, but he also feels the time is set in stone, while Savage wants to change things and make things even worse for Rip, and you really do see that contrast between these two here, and I think the way they fleshed that out was just perfect, and these two, you really feel that intense, the intense tension that these two have for each other. It's something that I think has been lost in the other episodes, and really was focused on very well here, and really brings the episode to a very satisfying close, and really makes me excited to see where next week's episode is going to go. So overall, guys, amazing stuff. I absolutely love this episode. There were so many amazing things about it. Like I said, by far the best episode of the season, in my opinion. Even though if I had to pick a favorite, I think it still would be the 50s episode. This, without a doubt, was the best episode of the season. I mean, it was shocking, it was revealing, we had that incredible positivity, and we did get to see a lot of the conflict. There wasn't any bullshit in this episode. There wasn't a lot of Kendra and Ray, which I was very happy with. This episode focused on what was working. It did exactly what I said the show should do. It focused on what was working and what was not working, and I really did love that. And when the show does that, it does that very well. Sure, Sarah didn't have a lot to do in this episode, but that didn't matter. They had a great arc for Ray and for Kendra and for Rip, and that's the thing that really matters here. They've always been like this central character. Sarah has been central as well, but I think she did have stuff to do in this episode, obviously, but this really was more focused on Rip, Ray, and Kendra, and how they move forward with with, how they move forward to this whole situation. We did get some really good stuff with Len as well. But let's talk about this whole situation now, because what is Kendra exactly going to do? I mean, now Kendra's distracted. She's going to focus on wanting to save Carter, and that's exactly what Savage wants to do. He wants to weaken her in the sense that she's not really focused on the mission. She's focused now on getting Carter back. That's what matters to her, is getting Carter back, making sure that he's safe, and I don't really know where we go from here. What she's going to do. Is she going to try to save Carter? What's going to happen with her and Ray? This suddenly has made this subplot a lot more interesting, and I'm happy that they did that, because for a while, this was kind of boring. I mean, these two are set to get married, and I definitely think that wedding is not going to happen. Now that she knows that Carter's alive, there's no way she's going to move forward. It's honestly kind of sad, because you did want Kendra to move forward, but now it seems like there's no way that happening, because of course, as long as Carter's alive, Kendra is not going to stop harping on getting him back to his normal self, which I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen with that. I love seeing Ray be that hero that he always wanted to be. I think he finally has gotten to achieve that success as being that hero, and I love seeing that. I think it's fantastic to watch. You did get that season finale feel in this episode. You could definitely tell that they tried to make this like a season finale, even though it's not. I think it did make a very compelling episode. Obviously, it's not the season finale. I think definitely there were some things, such as the Ray fight, that felt like a season finale, and I really did love seeing that. And then as far as Rip goes, is Rip going to be able to save his family? I mean, that really is the central question here. Will he save his family? We don't really know if he's going to be able to. And Cassandra seems to be on their side. Why is she on their side? Because like I said, I think Glenn was able to convince her. But is she really on their side? Is she lying to them? I mean, I'm not going to confirm that Cassandra is on their side. I think Glenn wants to think that. But is she completely on their side? I feel like she's kind of divided, where she's kind of on Savage's side. She's kind of starting to see through, and she doesn't really trust Savage, but she is going to stay loyal because, like everyone, she's deathly terrified of him, and I think that's a big thing that's going on here. But overall, guys, so much you guys saw this episode. Love to hear your thoughts on it. I absolutely love this episode. Did everything I wanted to do. Remember, you guys saw this episode. I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for Empire, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.